What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. Blizzard definitely gets a lot of complaints about balance in Hearthstone, and sometimes rightfully so as far as their balance and design goes, but still though, balancing a card game is definitely a lot harder than it looks on the surface, especially when it comes to designing cards in general. I mean, you have to think about how each tiny little change to a card affects how it interacts with literally every other card in the entire game. And when you consider how complicated of a game Hearthstone actually kind of is now, and the fact that each card Blizzard designs or changes can change the game immensely, the research and development team actually does an okay job at least, if not a pretty decent job, of keeping the game balanced and just fun to play in general. And today we thought we'd try to give them a little bit of a shout out by talking about some of our favorite choices for some of the best designed cards in Hearthstone. So let's jump right into it. At number 7, it's kind of a fun one, it's Circle of Healing. This is going to be our choice for the first one on the list. Now, Circle of Healing is actually a really awesome card because the thing is that it doesn't seem like it does anything on the surface. I mean, to a new player, when I first started playing Hearthstone, you look at Circle of Healing and you're like, what the hell is that card? That card is just so weird and useless. But it's actually one of Priest's most powerful tools. I mean, when you have an Akanai Soul Priest out, Circle becomes a free board wipe, of course, but the applications don't stop there. I mean, combined with stuff like Wild Pyromancer, Northshire Cleric, Circle can easily refill your hand or just mill your opponent out in the Priest Mirror or just combo for a bunch of damage. And it also makes your injured Blade Masters back up into 4/7s, lets your minions survive extra turns, cycles with gadgets and Auctioneer for free, and does all manner of stuff. And for such a simple and basic card almost, or at least seemingly simple card, Circle of Healing does so much and gets so much more complexity that you just don't see on the face of the card, and for just 0 mana as well. I mean, it can do so many different things and can enable so many awesome combos that it just had to make our list. Next up at number 6, we have Mind Control Tech. Now, the awesome thing about this card is definitely all of the various mind games and strategies that it really creates. If Mind Control Tech is currently in the meta, or maybe if you're just happen to be playing Arena, you always have to think about whether it's worth it or not to commit that 4th minion to the board and risk getting MC Tech'd. On the flip side though, the person playing the MC Tech always has to decide, whether they just want to play it on curve for that body, or wait till it can maybe get a lot more value but risk dying before it happens. Mind Control Tech is also rarely a game-breaking card, since you have to be behind for it to work in the first place, right? It's pretty much never a card that is gonna let you win more or take you from a situation where you're kind of doing okay already and just completely throw out the game, but it does just create such amazing comebacks and such really close balanced games that wouldn't otherwise exist in a way that isn't like super overpowered. It is true that MC Tech does have a little bit of an RNG factor to it, since of course the minion you steal is random, but that doesn't make it actually that much less of a skill intensive card, since your opponent always has the option to play around a potential MC Tech going off in most cases. Mind Control Tech also does have some really interesting scenarios or combos with stuff like Leroy or other effects that make your opponent summon minions, since you can, give them some whelps in hopes of stealing their Tyrion or something like that. Either way, Mind Control Tech creates some pretty awesome skill testing interactions, and it's a solid enough body that it's not just a one-dimensional card, and it's definitely a really awesome lead design card in the game. Moving on, for number 5, we have Lord Jaraxxus. Lord Jaraxxus was one of the first cards in Hearthstone ever to have so many unique effects. Jaraxxus replaces your hero, it replaces your hero power, and it also equips a weapon in Warlock. It also has an insane amount of just depth and counterplay. Despite how overpowered it might actually seem on the surface, Jaraxxus is a card that is just very well balanced actually. His weapon can definitely provide a huge amount of value, but it's also a huge liability when it comes to playing against cards like Harrison Jones, or of course is easily countered with cards like Acidic Swamp Ooze. Setting your life total to 15 with Jaraxxus also means that you become very vulnerable to burst damage combos, since no matter how much healing you have, it's useless if they just kill you in one turn. On the flip side though, you do get a ridiculously strong hero power that is sure to grind out the win after a long game, but it comes at the cost of having to essentially just completely skip a turn. There's a lot of really cool interactions with Jaraxxus as well, like Sacrificial Pact, or maybe saving the coin so that you can coin an Infernal out the turn Jaraxxus comes down. I mean, despite it being a game-ending, flashy, sort of legendary card, Jaraxxus actually has a lot of counterplay to it, advanced gameplay, and actually ends up being really balanced in general, making it just such an awesome card, considering just how cool the damn thing is. Next up, at number 4, we have Wild Pyromancer. Now, Wild Pyromancer is a really awesome card because it's a fairly simple effect that actually has just such an infinite amount of uses and interactions and just awesome combos. In the recently nerfed Worgen combo deck, for example, Wild Pyromancer was comboed with stuff like Commanding Shout and then a variety of spells in order to use that as a board clear for your opponent's board. Draw a lot of cards while also keeping your minions on the board, albeit at just 1 health. At the same time, Priest can use Wild Pyromancer both as a draw engine with Northshire Cleric and Circle of Healing, and as an early game board clear in conjunction with stuff like Power Word Shield, the coin. In Paladin decks, Wild Pyromancer combos with Equality to make an awesome board clear for just 4 mana, or with Consecration for an AoE board clear for 3 damage. Although some classes can definitely take advantage of Wild Pyromancer better than others, it's definitely such an awesome addition to a ton of decks, and it's so fun to play with because it combos with so many things, and it's just an awesomely designed card. I mean, having a repeatable whirlwind effect on a fairly weak creature that combos with other things and really just encourages combos so much more than almost any other card in the entire game does, and that's just so awesome on just such like a basic minion. Moving on, at number 3, we have Unleash the Hounds, the current version. I can't say the same for the previous versions of the card, but Unleash the Hounds today is a really awesome piece. I mean, not only because of all the sweet interactions it has, but also because it's only ever good if your opponent commits to the board. You know, this is something we kind of mess around with in League a lot, actually, in the sense that counterplay is something that's really awesome, you know, but the absolute best form of counterplay is counterplay that your opponent is allowed to use in a way that is only determined by their actual decisions. It doesn't require your opponent to have a removal spell. It doesn't require your opponent to have some kind of card or some kind of combo to play against Unleash the Hounds. The only thing it has is that it allows your opponent to play around it with just their own decisions. And that type of counterplay is just awesome. And it's something that's actually very difficult to create in a card game like Hearthstone. It's something I wish we could see more, because most of the time cards are just countered by other cards. You know, you play a minion, it gets countered by a spell or maybe another minion. But cards that get countered by your actual decisions as a player are just so awesome, and I would love to see more cards like this in the game. Unleash also enables a lot of other really awesome combos for the Hunter player as well. I mean, you can use it with stuff like Knife Juggler, Scavenging Hyena, maybe even Starving Buzzer. That's a flash from the past. Get that extra value out of the Hounds. Of course, it also produces beasts, so you can do it with stuff like Houndmaster or Kill Command. It also has great, amazing synergy with cards like Leok or Timberwolf. Unleash can also be used as a potential board control tool, as a way to maybe push lethal or all sorts of stuff. And they also do great against potential secrets like Freezing Trap or Vaporize. And I mean, just like having Unleash in your deck is going to force your opponent to constantly decide whether or not they want to play more on the board and risk getting Unleash or not commit enough to the board, you know, it really creates a lot of mind games and just decisions that your opponent has to make that they otherwise wouldn't have. And I think that's really awesome and something that is really just so cool to see in a card, and at least in our opinion, makes it well designed. Up next, we have something that is actually not seen that often necessarily, but it's Deathlord. So when Deathlord was first released in Curse of Naxxramas, you know, everyone just laughed about how terrible of a card it was and how much value you lost when you played it, but in reality, Deathlord's actually an extremely well-designed card and turned out pretty cool and definitely surpassed expectations. It's actually really awesome card for any control or fatigue deck, since it stalls up the early game and definitely makes your opponent fatigue faster because they get a card out of their deck. And there were also a ton of really amazing things you could do with it that usually involves stuff like Echo of Medivh or Duplicate maybe. I mean, Deathlord seems like it would have just a massive drawback since the opponent gets a minion for free out of their deck, but Deathlord works awesomely in control or fatigue decks. It doesn't always matter that they get an extra minion since you're playing a ton of board wipes and removal anyway, but pulling that extra card from their deck, as well as being a huge body, is potentially a tremendous upside. And the reason why we believe that Deathlord is a really amazingly designed card is because, you know, traditional game theory would kind of just like, you know, when you first see it, everyone's going to assume that it's a terrible card, but it can actually work really well if you build your deck around it to have the right interactions with it, and that's something that I think is just really cool to see in cards in general, and it's something that I wish we would actually see more of. You know, there's so many cards that have downsides to them that Blizzard prints, and those cards just end up being completely useless or just totally unplayable. And although Deathlord doesn't see that much play nowadays, I guess, of course it's not in standard anymore, but back in the day when it did, it was awesome, and it's something that I would like to see Blizzard print more cards like it. Next up, rounding out the list, we have Doomsayer, and man, is this card awesome. You know, Doomsayer can be a 2-mana board wipe, a way to stall, a way to prevent your opponent from casting minions the next turn, and do so much more. You know, having a 2-mana minion act as a board wipe is a pretty interesting mechanic, but having it rely on surviving for a turn is actually such an awesome concept, and it offers your opponent so much opportunities for just counterplay. You know, they can kill the Doomsayer, they can play death rattles if they don't want to kill it or if they can't kill it. They at least know for the fact that it's coming so that they don't, you know, play more minions or overcommit to the board. Doomsayer also has some pretty awesome synergy with cards that potentially freeze your opponent's board, like maybe Frost Nova or Blizzard, but it also has a ton of other applications as well. I mean, you can play it in the early game where it kills a 2 or 3 drop and just buys you a turn, since the opponent's not going to play minions into a Doomsayer. You can also play Doomsayer on an empty board later in the game, because that's going to like guarantee that when it comes back to your turn, you're going to have the board, since your opponent's not going to play anything into the Doomsayer. Then you can drop Alex Strauzer or something after like that. You can also just play Doomsayer when your opponent has enough damage on board to kill it, because then it kind of works as a 0/7 taunt minion almost. Either way though, Doomsayer has just such an awesome amount of different uses and interactions and scenarios that you wouldn't otherwise see for a 2-mana minion, and it also just does a ton of really cool things, and that's why it's our pick for one of the best designed cards in Hearthstone. So what do you guys think some of the best design cards in Hearthstone are? No doubt you definitely disagreed with our list somewhere, so definitely let us know in the comments below. And looks like that's gonna be it for me. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.